Hearts of Iron 4 is a historical grand strategy set during World War II. Since buying it a few months ago, it has eaten up over 150 hours of my life. It also lives rent-free in my head whenever I'm doing things that aren't Hearts of Iron 4. Just ask my friends or my girlfriend, they are sick of me sending them Hearts of Iron memes all the time, which I'll now be referring to as Hoi 4. Hoi 4 charges the player with taking control of any country that existed during World War II and guiding them through this turbulent and earth-shattering time. The timeline is limited compared to most other grand strategy titles, but the sense of scale is far more zoomed in. The player is tasked with every minute detail that the developers Paradox Interactive could think of, from manufacturing to supplying fronts, from grand battle plans to small individual operations, from internal policies to global diplomacy. There are so many different systems going on in Hoi 4 that it is a game bewildering to learn. Hoi 4 features a bare-bones tutorial, which may be one of its biggest flaws. It runs you through a scenario as Italy in 1936, a country that is already at war. This allows the player to practice almost all of the basics of Hoi 4, but the game doesn't go as far to explain why you are doing what you are doing. I think that anyone that has played Hoi 4 has at one point or another tried to get a friend into the game. Those people would realize that this is mostly a futile effort. The game makes barely any attempt to onboard the player, overwhelming them with menus and icons with a lack of any real direction. The logic that I've gathered behind this bare-bones tutorial is that the game is ever-changing. Paradox fans are dedicated and will play with / mod anything and everything until they completely understand the inner workings. I believe Paradox relies on the community to explain the systems to new players, which is pretty unfriendly. This said, Paradox seems to have moved away from this approach, with Crusader Kings 3 and the upcoming Victoria 3 having much better onboarding systems. I'm not really sure whose side to take on this one, as the game has changed dramatically since release, and it would be a nightmare to keep an updated in-game tutorial working. On the other hand, I did have to watch a few hours of tutorials to get a general concept of how the game worked, which is far more than most are willing to give to a video game. I'm glad I did though. Hoi 4 has an insidious gameplay loop. It doesn't have turns like some other grand strategy games, but time still melts away all the same. One more factory, one more push, one more war. You will get lost in a mesmerizing fishbowl until you realize you've completely ignored your navy and German troops are at your door. Yes, be prepared to lose quite a bit in Hoi 4. Countries aren't balanced in a typical video game fashion. Any two countries may provide wildly differently gameplay experiences. For example, the Soviet Union will not play anything like Australia. This could upset some players, but if it does, they should look at it through a different lens. There is an immense satisfaction from taking a minor world power and carefully, meticulously crafting a strategy that at worst could lead to a better outcome than their real-life counterpart, and at best could result in complete Australian domination all over the globe. In this way, country selection feels like a difficulty slider baked into the nature of the game. Whenever starting a new game of Hoi 4, I get an almost choose-your-fighter type feeling from the game. Like a fighting game, both your knowledge of your own country and the countries surrounding you will be key to success beyond your station. I will often play the same country several times in a row. Each time I am defeated, I learn a new strategy or realize fatal flaws in my current one. Hoi 4 games are on the shorter side of the grand strategy spectrum, with most of my games ending in less than 10 hours. That said, I can never really make it past the 1943 mark without being wiped out or realizing that I'm not really far from it. Games are short and sweet, with an insane amount of tactics and planning to wrap your head around. On a presentation side of things, Hoi 4 has a clean and sleek interface. It is also quite fitting for the theme. Unfortunately, a lot of incredibly important information is hidden in places where most won't press to look naturally. To remedy this, I would advise to play the game at a slower speed and use the downtime to really poke and prod through the menus. If a term or game mechanic confuses you, I would implore you just to go straight to Dr. Google, as there is a plethora of information online about all facets of the game. Graphically, I don't have much to say. It is a step up from Europa Universalis 4, while not being quite as charming as Crusader Kings 3. There are several DLC packs to purchase, which add in a wide variety of unit models for specific countries, for those who want to go a bit deeper, but personally I didn't find this necessary in my 150 hours. It is important to note that while Hoi 4 is a historical game, you are the wild card of history. It is up to the player whether to follow the rails of history or to veer wildly off them. To ensure that the AI stays somewhat on the path of the true history, Hoi 4 has a system called focus trees. Focus trees are sort of like an unlockable technologies. These focuses, or foci, give nations boosts while at the same time steering them in a certain direction of play. Following Germany's historical focus tree will find you making historical actions, such as remilitarizing the Rhineland and the Anschluss of Austria. Following the alternative history's focus, on the other hand, will have you overthrowing Hitler very early game and dealing with the fallout that follows. These can be fun scenarios and can be amusing to see what the AI scrambles to come up with in response. Naturally coming in with both these major and minor countries sporting alternate focus trees is an alternate history mode. This gives the AI free rein to choose whichever focuses it pleases, creating some varied yet incredibly wacky alternate history scenarios. Gameplay in Hoi 4 is split between two distinct phases, pre-war and wartime. If played historically, the pre-war time of the game usually lasts for about 3 years, with the war kicking off in 1939. In this period, the player will spend most of their time building factories, picking focuses, training soldiers, constructing railroads and infrastructure in less supplied areas, and the list just goes on. It is a slow burn of carefully setting up the dominoes and waiting for the inevitable war to come. Depending on the nation you have chosen, this period is almost relaxing and immensely satisfying in its own right. It can also be quite stressful if you have chosen a nation that is in some sort of turmoil time, such as Bulgaria or Turkey, which have you also taken care of the several factions which make up your internal politics. Where all this planning comes together is obviously wartime, which is all hands on deck. This is where your plan is put to the test. Hoi 4 has a level of tactics not seen in any other grand strategy game that I can think of. Wartime plays to what feels like a very zoomed out real-time strategy game. Each unit model on the map represents a division made up of battalions. Players are free to customize the battalions in any which way they can think of, allowing the player to create specific divisions to suit their goal in mind. There is a mind-boggling number of combinations of infantry, armor, artillery, and support companies to add to your divisions. You could lose dozens of hours just fiddling with this system alone, but luckily the game includes pre-made divisions for every nation, which are usually pretty good when you're just going up against the AI. To add to this, there's also Navy and Air Force at play. Air Force is a pretty straightforward and only requires you to have a basic understanding to use your planes to a decent effect. The Navy, on the other hand, is completely and utterly obtuse. To this day, I don't really understand what is going on in this blue mess. I just know that if I keep building cheap submarines like the internet told me, I should be okay. If at any point you tire of the same old World War II every time you play, Hoi 4 has an exceptionally active modding scene. I personally haven't really found the urge to mod yet, though I find it comforting to know that even if I run out of content, that it never has to be the end of my Hearts of Iron 4 adventure. The game also has multiplayer, though like modding, I don't feel like I'm at the point where I'm comfortable engaging with it yet. I could go on and on and on about Hearts of Iron 4. People have told me to shut up about it, so I made this video. I hope you liked it, and I hoped it helped me get this out of my system. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next review.